Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of Suburban Warrior, the podcast. I am really honored to have our guest on today to share her really inspiring warrior story with us today. I have Alexis Kern sitting down with me, and she is an art director from New York who has recently transplanted to Arizona and has been in healthcare advertising for over 16 years. She had a virus that attacked her heart and now has a second chance at life. She is now living a life where she is thriving versus merely just surviving. And today she is here to tell her inspiring story with us. Hi, Alexis. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am really, I've heard a small portion of your story from the blog that you have been sharing through LinkedIn. And I'm personally really excited to hear the story directly from you. So first, why don't you, before we get into exactly your story and what happened with the illness, why don't you just give us a little bit about your background?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I lived in New York for 20 years, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And just recently decided to move to Arizona to be closer to some family and everything like that. I'm working in healthcare advertising, which I love. And, just going on my daily, life. And then all of a sudden this virus kind of came out of nowhere and just knocked me on my butt.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So tell us about that. About how long ago was that and that you started to experience some symptoms?
So I was admitted into the hospital of May of 2016.
Okay.
So 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
For me, this started off as a cold. And,
okay.
That's what's kind of crazy about heart disease is that, especially in women, it presents in really interesting ways. It's not like that normal stuff that you hear, like, oh, your left arm is numb, or, oh my God, you have this chest pain. For me, I had a cold and I, went to my doctor and I thought I was getting a sinus infection. And I had gone on a Z-Pak, which, everybody knows is the miracle drug.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it. It is a miracle drug for me as well.
Yeah. So, went on the Z-Pak and, by the end of the week, I started feeling better, but not so great. And then the day after I finished the Z-Pak, I woke up and I felt like I had mono again. So I was extremely tired. I was coughing. It was just this crazy, going from just having a cold that I thought was getting bronchitis into all of a sudden I feel like I have mono and you don't really know what's going on.
Okay, that is crazy because we all experience, cold and flu symptoms, especially right now. It's cold and flu season. We all have a cough, runny nose, sinus congestion. So to experience all that and to know that it was something so serious that it was a heart issue is crazy. So what happened? How long did it take for you? You said, okay, after the Z-Pak, you felt like you had mono. Then what? So
this is where my story gets really interesting. And, I can go a little personal here because I think, now I'm separated, right? So I went and met my dad for brunch that day and that Saturday. And I was like, I don't feel so right. I feel like I have fever. I feel like I have mono. It's so weird. I had mono a couple years before that. And I didn't even eat. I had no appetite. So I took my dad's oh, take food home with you. All right. So I got home and I was freezing. And I like went to bed and I slept for 14 hours straight. Like, and
Wow.
I don't even, I sleep like 6 hours, like if I'm lucky, so sleeping like 14 hours was crazy. So like that whole weekend, I was just sleeping, sweating, freezing, but sweating. Like, it was just really weird. Like, my body was doing like really wacky stuff. I had decided to stay home from work on Monday, knowing that like I just had like a rough weekend and knew I was going on vacation like later that week with some girlfriends. And that Monday night, like, like Monday, my fever finally broke and I was like 99. And for me, that's like a low grade fever. Like, I run, like, my temperature personally is lower. So I just kind of like hung out on the couch. I did work on my couch and, I went to bed later that night and I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt ghostly is how I describe it. Like, I didn't feel like I was in my own body.
Wow.
So I had like stumbled into the kitchen to like go get some water. And when I like got back into my bedroom, I couldn't even make it to my bed. So I was just like, my bed seems like way too far. And I had a really, at that time in my apartment, I had a really wide bedroom. It was like 20 feet wide. So I just kind of like lay down on the spot, or I don't even remember. I just knew I couldn't get to my bed. I woke up like a half hour later on my floor, completely sweated through my clothes. I remember like I couldn't even get to my phone if I wanted to because it was on the other side of the room. So I had just like laid there until like I could move again.
Wow. So scary.
So scary. So because I changed my clothes because I had sweat through all of them, went back to bed, and like an hour later I woke up and I felt like that ghostly feeling again, but not as bad. So this time I grabbed my phone, I grabbed like a little pillow, and I went into the bathroom so I could lie on the cold bathroom floors, just like you do when you get the flu, right?
Yeah.
Because like that's like the best place to be is those cold tiles. So I slept there for like another like half hour. And of course I woke up and I had sweat through my clothes. So like I changed them out again and I went back to bed. So, this whole time I'm just like, oh my God, maybe I have the flu or maybe I have mono, right? So,
at any point, are you thinking like, okay, should I go to the hospital or should I call a doctor?
I had thought about it that first time that I had passed out, or fell or however you want to call it. But, you don't think about that. I was 40 and healthy. Like, why am I going to the hospital? Like, I ate well, I exercised all the time, like, no history of anything in my family. So like, why, or anything heart related in my family. So why would I need to go to the doctor or something?
And so I'm sure at that point, you're not thinking that it's anything remotely, related to your heart.
Oh, not at all.
No.
Because why would you?
Right.
It's not like, again, and I said this before, but we're all taught when it's your heart, like you feel chest pain or your left arm goes numb. I don't have any of that.
Right.
So I emailed my doctor when I woke up on that Tuesday morning and I had told her what had happened. And at like 10:30, she emailed me back. She's like, come in. I was like, okay. So leaving work was kind of an issue. So I didn't really get to her until like noon.
So wait, you actually were in work?
I went to work.
Wait, after you like passed out, sweat through multiple pairs of clothes, and were sleeping on your bathroom floor, you crawled into work.
Well, you got to remember, New York advertising is.
Yeah. No, believe me, I'm not judging. I'm thinking like, man, you are like a badass because you are like fighting. Like, nope, I'm good. I'm going into work. I'm fighting it. I mean, it's just impressive. That is impressive that you got to work. Okay, so you emailed the doctor. You were going to her, going to see her.
So I went to go see her, and she must have heard something, which awesome on her part because she ran an EKG, and she leaves the room and she comes back, and mind you, she's like a very like chill woman. So she comes back in and she's like, listen, she's like, your heart sounds a little off, and I'm a little concerned, so I want you to go see a cardiologist. Legally, I can't let you leave the office and take a taxi. So I called you an ambulance. Don't freak out.
What?
Yeah. So she's like, don't freak out or anything. Like, this is just standard. She's like, EMS is going to come. The fire department's going to come. Just roll with it. And she's like, and when they do come, tell them you want to go to NYU. It's like she made it a point to tell me which hospital to go to. And like, she kept me pretty calm. So at that point, I called my family who are in North Jersey. And I was like, oh, Mom, Dad, they want to send me to the hospital, to get checked out by a cardiologist. My mom's like, what hospital? And that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to NYU. Mind you, so if you know the city, NYU is all the way on the East River. So their address is 34th and 1st. And my parents are in North Jersey, 17 miles outside the city, like closest to the tunnel, which is like directly across from there. So just put that into like perspective when I'm telling the rest of the story.
Okay.
So of course the fire department comes and like one's like cuter than the other.
You're like, okay, this isn't so bad.
This isn't so bad. And I'm like joking around with them and they put oxygen on me. And when EMS comes, now everybody has their own equipment. So they had to switch me out with the oxygen tank. And at that moment I crashed and I guess my body didn't realize how oxygen deprived it was. So I literally was like, they're like, you need to get up on the gurney. I was like, I can't move. I don't know how you want me to get up there because I can't physically put myself up there right now. So that took a little while until I was able to get up on the gurney. So, now going back, the reason why they were so cautious about me and like wanting to get me to the hospital is that when you have myocarditis, what happens on an EKG is that it shows up like you're having a heart attack. So like all the readings that come up on your EKG, like it presents like you're having a heart attack. So they obviously wanted to get me to the hospital like as fast as they could. So when I finally, they took me to NYU and the guys in the ambulance, and this is like my whole like continuance of this day, was like, listen, don't freak out. But there's going to be people waiting for you when you get to the hospital. Like, there's probably going to be like 30 people. So don't get crazy, but there will be people and they're just going to rush you. And I was like, okay. Again, like.
Yeah. So at this point, did you think that you were having a heart attack or did you ask that question?
I guess.
Or were you still like, I just have a bad flu and we're going there for precautionary reasons?
That's exactly what was going on. I was like, I am not having a heart attack. Like, I just don't feel well. Like, I'm sick.
Yeah.
Like you know your body. And
yeah, of course.
I was just sick. So they're like, we get into the ER and again, there's like 30 people that are all around me now, like taking off my clothes, putting on a robe, putting on the bracelet, like taking off my jewelry. And I see my mom pop her head around the corner. I was like, oh, hey, Mom. So somehow they got from North Jersey all the way to the east side of Manhattan in like however long it took me to get from my doctor's office to the hospital.
Oh, my gosh.
Like miracle on them. So
did they know? Did they talk to the doctor or anything? Or did they only know what you told them?
I have no idea. And I still, to this day, I haven't asked them that, but I probably should.
Yeah. Or maybe it was just divine intervention that they got it there as quickly as they did.
I can tell you that as a hospital system, NYU will tell you anything and everything you ask. So I'm sure knowing that that was my mother, they probably told her what was going on.
Sure. Okay.
So next thing you know, they're like rushing me through the hospital to the cath lab. And they're like, we need to make sure you're not having a heart attack. I'm like, I'm not having a heart attack, but okay. So
still in denial.
So they like, of course, they like put a camera up through my groin to check to see if I'm having a heart attack. And they're like, no, you're not having a heart attack. And I was like, thank you. So those people leave. And the next thing you know, like 30 other people come into the cath lab. And next thing you know, I'm like pretty much crashing at this point on and off. And so they worked on me for maybe like 3.5 hours until they stabilized me. And then about like 7 p.m. or so, I rolled into ICU. And that's where I stayed for the next 2 weeks.
So when you were crashing, were you literally crashing like your heart stopped and it was coming back?
My heart rate was, so what happens with myocarditis, which is really interesting, is that your heart muscle, so you like not the walls of your heart, but the actual physical muscle gets inflamed.
Right.
So it can't work. And your electrical is hidden underneath all those layers. So your electrical system is not being able to pump your heart correctly. So a lot of times what happens is that your heart rate drops, and it's called bradycardia.
Yeah.
So like my heart rate was dropping to like 30 BPMs, like, or something ridiculous. Like it was just
Yeah.
so low. But then I was also having these moments where I was getting like super fast heart rates. Like, so I was going both bradycardic and tachycardic, which I still kind of do today a little bit, but not anywhere like what was going on then. So, they needed to help the heart function. So they had put in like a non-permanent pacing wire to
Okay.
help to give my heart some electricity. And they also implanted a device called an impella, which functions like a balloon. So it literally was moving the blood through my heart into my body so that my heart muscle could relax and heal.
Okay.
So
So they stabilized you. You went into the ICU, and that's where you spent 2 weeks?
2 weeks, 12
2
days.
weeks. Wow. And so basically in the ICU, what were they doing? Were they curing the virus that was attacking your heart?
So here's the thing with a virus, there is no cure,
Oh,
right?
right. True.
Viral,
True.
like your body has to fight that off.
Yeah.
They're just giving me meds to help my body, fight off that infection, whatever it was.
Right. And treat the symptoms as much as
Yeah,
possible.
exactly. So, again, luckily I was 40 and healthy. So like that definitely helped me and my body fight whatever was going on. The impella that was in, at that point, like they recommend like 3 days that you have an impella in, and I wound up having mine in for 8 days.
Wow.
So yeah, and during that 8 days, because they put the impella in through your groin into your heart, I couldn't move my left side of my body, so I had to keep that straight and be in bed. So I couldn't even sit up. So I was pretty much like bedridden for 8 days before I was strong enough to remove that device.
Wow. And so, okay, so after ICU, I'm sure you went to a step down unit. And how long were you in the hospital for in total?
The first time I was in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I spent another 2 days in just regular the cardio wing, just as monitoring after like all the devices came out, make sure I was strong enough to go home. Yeah, like when I was in ICU, like I was practicing walking again. So
Yeah.
they just wanted to make sure that I was able to like function on my own. I had OT, I had PT come into my room to kind of
Yeah.
like
It's
help.
amazing how much therapy is needed after a hospital stay, whether, no matter what you have going on, but if you are bedridden and like you said, not really even able to move for a couple days, 8 days, I mean, you really need the physical therapy, occupational therapy, and all of these different modalities just to get you up and functioning again.
Yeah, I mean, what I learned in the hospital is that as a younger patient, our muscles atrophy much quicker. So someone who's older, like 60 plus, because your muscles have been used for so long, the memory stays there. Because I was 40 and had to stay bedridden for 8 days. When the first thing they did with me is that they let me sit up. So I
Wow.
sat in a chair I made it an hour and a half, which I thought was amazing, right?
Yeah.
For an hour and a half, and then I slept for 4.
Yeah. Because you were exhausted from sitting up for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, then tell us what your mindset was after realizing you had this myocarditis. You were in the hospital for several weeks, and I'm sure getting home was really quite the journey for you as well, because you had to recover from the sickness. It took time.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that journey like for you?
I mean, it was very humbling at first because I went back to live with my parents.
Okay.
And thankfully, I have an amazing relationship with them. They are two of the most amazing people I know in life, honestly. And, I discovered pretty damn quickly that I couldn't take a hot shower. So, like, because the hot water moves your blood to your surface. And so your heart's not getting enough oxygen. So I had to
Wow.
take cool showers. Yeah. So I had to take some cool showers at first. And then my mom would take me out walking there was a local Y, and they had a baseball field that had a small track around it. So my mom would take me there so I can practice trying to walk around one loop of that without stopping. So we did that every day until like finally I was able to walk, not fast, but just not feel exhausted after walking. But it was a lot of napping. It was a lot of patience. It was a lot of not getting mad at myself because I didn't have the energy that I thought I should have. And
Yeah.
really just giving my heart permission to have time to heal and have time to get stronger again.
And how long do you think that process took until you felt, I don't even know. Do you feel back to normal now that it's been 3.5 years? Like, how do you feel now?
Well, today I can tell you that I feel great, like heart-wise.
Okay.
Um, what happened to me is that I had to go back into the hospital a month and a half later because my electrical system didn't quite catch up as well as they thought it was going to catch up.
Okay.
So I went back into the hospital for another 2 weeks.
Wow.
And,
And I'm sure that was really scary after everything you'd gone through, feeling like you might go through it again.
yes and no. Like this time it was really because they were trying to decide if I needed a permanent pacemaker or not.
Okay.
So my cardiologist was really against me getting it because he wanted my heart to, because once you get a pacemaker, you got a pacemaker, right?
Right. Right.
Not like an easy thing to take in and out.
Sure.
They did a lot of watching and a lot of waiting. And of course, because it was over a weekend, they didn't want to leave. Like when I first went in, they didn't want to leave me without any sort of device. So they put a pacing wire in through my neck. So I had to go back to ICU while I had this pacing wire in through my neck. So finally, after like 3 days, and they could get me into like the regular cath lab. And so when they went back in and put in like a semi-permanent one. And so then I had the pacemaker outside, and then I got moved down out of ICU again, back into like a regular room where luckily I have a really cool doctor that he's like, here's your clothes, go put on your own pajamas or your own comfy clothes that you want to wear and just hang out. We're just going to keep an eye on you. So like that one, like I got to walk up and down the hallways every day. Like I was probably the healthiest person on that floor.
Right.
And the youngest.
Sure.
But again, it was just really like a monitoring thing because my heart rate was dropping so low and having these fast episodes as well. So,
And so throughout this whole process, did you learn, is there anything specific that causes or can cause myocarditis, or is it just truly like any other virus that you can just pick up?
so it is, there are certain viruses that do cause myocarditis, but then there's other ones that like you just don't know what's causing the virus. So like for me, they don't know what virus it was. I can tell you that the only two things that like really came out that are a concern is that my mono, remember I said I felt like I had mono?
Yes.
My EBV numbers were through the roof. So like my mono reactivated and went kind of haywire.
Okay.
And then I had a slight elevation of Coxsackie B, which people know Coxsackie as like hand and foot.
Yeah.
Like that little kids.
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah. I'm familiar with it. My kids had it.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
So for me, it came up just like your normal is like 1.10, and I came up at 1.16.
Wow.
So my infectious disease doc is like, I don't even know if you really have this. You're just like elevated right now. So that could be it. So when I had gone back in the hospital for a second time, they sent they had done a heart biopsy on me. They sent it out for a second opinion just to make sure that they didn't miss anything. So that other hospital confirms that I had a virus, but an unknown virus.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. And so tell us how you're feeling today.
Today I feel, heart-wise, I feel fantastic. I always say like in 6 months, I'm going to look back and be like, holy shit, I'm a lot stronger today than I was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I keep going. Like I feel like great now, but I know in 6 months I'm going to feel even more fantastic. which is kind of a crazy thing to think about because just the whole, just how time works, right?
Right.
I can tell you that my most recent reading of my pacemaker is that I'm barely using it, which is exciting that my heart is like really functioning on its own. So in my top chamber, I'm using like 5% of the time. And in my bottom chamber, I'm using it like 0.1% of the time, which is crazy. I mean, it's like a backup system that I'm barely touching.
Yeah. And what about, so that's how you're feeling physically. How are you feeling mentally?
Mentally, I can say that I feel really fortunate that I've had a fantastic support system between my parents, my brother, my sister-in-law, my aunt and uncle, my cousin, like my friends. Oh my God, they've been just incredible. So, those days that I struggle, at least I've had somebody to like lean on that way.
Yeah.
But on the most part, I feel really blessed that I have like all these people in my life that I'm able to really enjoy where I am in life. I mean, look, I've moved cross country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's amazing. I mean, has it changed your perspective on your life at all?
Not in like this like huge dramatic like, oh my God, I have like a second chance in life, because the way it's changed for me, it's just I just can't take everything as seriously anymore.
Well, that's pretty big
Yeah.
because most of us take things way too serious or more serious than we need to. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a pretty big realization to shift your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there are days that I'm just like, oh yeah, this kind of sucks,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I realize, but like, why am I really getting that crazy about it? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, like don't sweat the small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you realize, I guess, unfortunately, you had to go, going through this terrible virus and having such a serious situation, but it does give you the perspective of what is really most important in life and, not sweating the small stuff and, all of those sort of things. And it sounds like you're doing just that by spending time with your family and connecting at a deeper level with them, because really at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do. That's what it's all about.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I adopted an amazing dog after my first hospital stay.
Aw,
Uh,
that's so fun.
yeah, which his name's Tucker, and he kind of hangs out with me, and he's a good little dude. So I like having him around.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, Alexis, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, because I just think it's so important for everyone to hear, especially because, I think the key message here, besides perspective, of course, and mindset, is that we really do need to listen to our bodies and take care of ourselves. And when we think something feels a little off, even if it might not, be hitting us over the head with certain symptoms one way or another, because I do think, especially as women or as moms, we tend to, be like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm going to get better, I'm not going to go to the doctor, I'm going to heal myself, I don't have time for that. But sometimes our bodies really are trying to tell us something. And I think it's so important to listen, because with your story, it is huge. I would never have thought, I mean, and I'm asthmatic, so I'm always very in tune with my breathing and, if I have some type of bronchitis or something. But if I got a cough or anything like that, I don't think I would really, my heart would not be where I would go. And
No,
we know that heart disease is, I mean, I think, I don't want to misspeak here, but I'm pretty sure it might be like the number one killer, right, of women.
it is.
Yeah. So, and obviously something like myocarditis is part of that, in that heart disease. It doesn't just have to be a heart attack where you all of a sudden get this horrible pain and you're falling over, and, tightness or tingling in your arm and all of these things that we're taught, it could be symptoms of a heart attack. So thank you. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for sharing your story with us and being vulnerable, because I think it's a really important story to get out there. And I really appreciate you sharing it.
Thanks for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for all joining us today. And be sure to check out the show notes on chrissypifer.com. And you can follow me on Suburban Warrior on Instagram and join our Facebook community, Suburban Warrior. It's a great group where we can share ideas and inspiration and all be there for each other. So thank you so much and all have a great day. And Alexis, are you anywhere on social media that they can find you?
I am. My Instagram is, what is my Instagram? It's AI Kern. That's just it. And I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Awesome.
So yeah, you can check me out.
Yes. And LinkedIn has your story with this same story with a blog. So check it out there. And thanks so much for joining today. We'll see you soon.